Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Established Run's NBA Injury Report Analysis Show. I'm Drew Dinkmeyer alongside Mike Gallagher. We have an 8-game slate ahead of us, and once again, it is the Health and Safety Protocol Show, as it looks like it will be for a few more weeks. We did get some new guidance from the league and from the CDC about how long players may need to stay in protocols, that it sounds like things will be shortened considerably. The hope, I think, for everybody involved is that once you go into health and safety protocols, that you don't have a risk of reinfection and going back in later, and thus this variant will just run through the league, and then we won't have to deal with this stuff as much, is I guess the hope at this point. It seems from all the data and evidence that players who have been vaccinated, especially those who have been boosted as well, have had very, very mild symptoms, which is great to hear. So, Mike, how do you think, let's start there. How do you think the changes to the protocols are going to impact what we are trying to do for a living over the next few weeks?
It makes it almost like twice as hard, honestly, because now you're having a little bit more juggling, right? You had the guys coming back, the guys new going out. We found out, like, perfect example with the Cavs. Oh, great, Evan Mobley's back. Oh, wait, Darius Garland's gone. Like, it just sucks. And poor Klaff was going through the projections, and it sucks, man. This is got to be one of the worst times ever in the biz. Not to complain on our end, but it's tough out here. But we're here for you guys.
Yeah, it's challenging. I think the thing that I really liked about the updated injury report every hour this year was that I felt like we could always kind of stay ahead and not get caught up with work all at once. And now what we've had instead is kind of redoing work over and over and over again on the same team, instead of like getting it all at once in one bulk and you can just update and move on. Now it's like you get a little trickle in and then you update, and then an hour later you get another trickle in and then you redo. It's frustrating for sure. But let's do our best to tackle these. We've got a lot. The other thing is we've got so many players that are questionable now, right? Mm-hmm. On health and safety protocols. Before, it was straight out situations for health and safety protocols. So it's just like now you're having a guessing game. And like we've said all along, we have a history of being able to analyze injuries and like ankle sprains and different things like that, and have an idea of when guys will return. Teams aren't even like practicing now because of testing. And so you're not even getting reports on practices or anything. It's just kind of a mess. Let's start with the Raptors. They are a huge mess. They lost by almost 50 to Cleveland last time out, running basically a total G League type squad out there. They did get some positive news in that Pascal Siakam, Gary Trent, and Khem Birch got upgraded to questionable. Those are at least 3 rotation players, including one of, 2 of their starters and one of their star players in Pascal Siakam. So that would at least make the burden on running out a full G League type roster a little bit easier. But what do you expect? Do you think we'll see these guys back tonight? And do you think we should have any concerns about limitations if they are? We've seen certain teams have more concerns over conditioning and others not. We know Nick Nurse usually likes to run very, very tight rotations.
Yeah, Nick Nurse didn't really have much in his last pressers, talking about like hopefully having guys back. Mentioned they were hopefully getting into practicing yesterday because the guys they played in that blowout with Cleveland, they hadn't practiced. And he talked about how their lack of defense was very evident because they weren't able to practice. But he also mentioned Delano Banton's minutes were rough, and he wasn't in shape because of COVID, which is another layer to this. And the question in chat, like, why isn't Jared Allen back? I mean, he's probably still testing positive. Everybody's different. Everyone's affected everyone different. People bounce back from conditioning different. I mean, Jason Tatum's a good example where, like, the picture of health, it takes him months. Yeah. He's using an inhaler to get over COVID the first time last year. Yeah.
Last year, yeah.
Like, that's pre-vax, but the point still stands. Yeah. But, I don't know. So we'll see. We'll do our best. Hopefully guys come back. They're pretty much at that 10-day period, so they could be back, but we don't really know.
And if they are unable to return, I imagine we'd see something very similar to the last time out. You saw a lot of shot opportunities for Boucher, a lot for Yuta Watanabe. You saw DJ Wilson have it like a huge game, but on low usage in a lot of stocks. So if you're going back to the well here, you'd probably be looking at Svi, Boucher, Watanabe. But like, if these guys are cheap, anybody can be in play when you're running rotations this tight and guys are cheap. So we'll keep an eye on Toronto. That is one of the earlier games, not the first run of games, but the second run of games at 7:30 Eastern time tonight. All right, Washington, Bradley Beal, questionable. That one is one of the more surprising ones to me, given what we've been told about recovery periods and different things for unvaxxed players. And Beal is notoriously unvaxxed because he's been public about his concerns for the vaccine. But he was only in protocols for 2 games, basically, right? Mm-hmm. So pretty quick turnaround here. He's questionable. You lose Montrezl Harrell, Aaron Holiday, Raul Neto, Rui Hachimura, and Anthony Gill. So you lose a lot of kind of bench depth pieces here. What are we looking at for Washington tonight?
Yeah, so just to set Beal up here, according to Wes Unseld, he's been working out in the gym, so I don't know if it's private or whatever. But
he has a private.
Yeah. So it sounds like he's in pretty good shape as far as he said mild condition, mild symptoms and stuff. So could be full go. He said that he'll see how his body responds, and he says he could play quote standard Beal minutes. So Beal could be in play if he does go. But yeah, I mean you're talking about losing it. Besides him, losing it on both ends. You're losing your guards with Aaron Holiday and Raul Neto, and now you're losing Montrezl Harrell. So now it's a push-pull scenario. Like Denny Avdia, who was playing, some point guard spots last year when they were shorthanded, that would have probably been the plan. But now that you got to play Kyle Kuzma at the 5 a little bit, play Davis Bertans a little bit, you really can't take Denny Avdia out of position. So he's got to fill minutes there. They have Jordan Goodwin, who played pretty well in the G League. Him and Joel Ajayi should pick up most of those backup point minutes. I think Goodwin's ahead, but it doesn't really matter. Yeah. But Corey Kispert will still 5 minutes. KCP is still not cleared yet. So, but yeah, Denny Avdia's minutes should be pretty good. Kyle Kuzma is going to play a ton. And then obviously Daniel Gafford, I think we put him at 28 minutes because we know Gafford is last year with Scott Brooks. Like he would not play him, obviously different coaching staff, but doesn't really play big minutes. So I think 28 is a pretty good number, baking in foul risk and all that stuff.
He's a guy that throughout his NBA career has had issues with foul trouble. And then he's one of these guys that his motor is so strong when he's out there that he kind of burns himself out pretty quick. So he usually is a shorter rotations guy. So it's harder for him to get into the 30s, but he should be able to, play as much as he can handle tonight against Miami. Miami is a team that is more likely to kind of go small on the back end after you're at 7 minutes. So it's a spot where you can get, Kuzma at center or Bertans at center, and it's not really that big of a problem. Mm-hmm. So I think that's the way that Washington will choose to fill those. Let's go to the Cavs, where just kind of rotating around. And this is what we're seeing with teams, right? We get theoretically maybe Evan Mobley back. Isaac Okoro, who was not health and safety protocols related, is questionable as well. But now we lose Darius Garland. And we've talked about the Cavs situation, all year long in how Darius Garland has been so important to the Cavs' ascension this year because the loss of Colin Sexton left them really shorthanded in the backcourt. They basically were trying to run all of their guard minutes through Sexton, Rubio, and Garland, and then Okoro, taking a few. You remove Sexton, you remove Garland, and now it's just Rubio and Okoro, and Okoro is questionable as potential guards. Then you've got behind them Denzel Valentine, Kevin Pangos, Nembhard. It's thin. So are we going to see how much can Ricky Rubio take on? Are we going to see 35 Ricky Rubio minutes out here? We know the Cavs have been willing to play their guys pretty tight.
Yeah, when they were missing Mobley for elbow, Lauri Markkanen, and others, they ran Rubio upper 30s. So yeah, I think he's going to be a really, really good play today against one of the worst defenses in the NBA. So definitely into Rubio. Yeah, it'll be Kevin Pangos behind him. I think Okoro should be good to go. He was questionable for the last game, so pretty good chance he could return. Mobley, according to Chris Fedor, is going to kind of be a game-time decision, see how his conditioning is. JB Bickerstaff said he had some quotes on it too. Said that he wants to slowly ramp up guys returning from protocols. So you probably won't see that we've seen the high 30s out of Mobley sometimes. Yeah. So, if he's in, we'll probably put him at 31, I'd say. I think he should be in there. He's been out for a little bit, though, which is a little bit of a concern. But, he has a really high upside if he is in good shape and he has been conditioned. We'll get more information, hopefully, in the pregame. But, it's the Ricky Rubio show for sure. And we'll see Okoro. Okoro could play pretty good minutes, too, because they need guards right now. So Okoro could be in play, too.
Yeah, the guys behind them. I mean, Valentine's an NBA player, but Nembhard and Pangos are really not. And Valentine's like an end of bench kind of NBA player, so definitely really high ceiling minutes for the guards. With Mobley potentially back, you could see a little bit more of a normal big rotation between Mobley, Love, Markkanen, Dean Wade. Like they kind of have those things covered there. Get a little bit thin at the three because they have to squeeze some minutes from those bigs at the three. We saw Kevin Love go, bonkers last game in 18 minutes, which just shows like the usage potential for Kevin Love. And Rubio and Love have a great connection. So I wouldn't even be surprised, honestly, if there was a situation where if they're wanting to manage Mobley's minutes on the way back, where they like start Love just to like have his minutes aligned with Rubio and then keep Love's minutes down and have Mobley kind of anchor like a second unit and get up to like 26, 27. Like if they're really trying to manage Mobley's minutes, I wouldn't be surprised to see something like that tonight. Okay, let's go to the Thunder where we no longer have Josh Giddey. Aaron Wiggins is now back in. We're without Darius Bazley, Trey Mann, Pokashevsky, Jeremiah Robinson-Earl. That's a lot of bigs that OKC is down. So you are the OKC whisperer. How are they going to handle this loss of front court depth, both at forward and center? I mean, these are the options that they usually play here with Jeremiah Robinson-Earl, Pokashevsky, Giddey, and Bazley. These guys are guys that they usually play. So how are they going to fill these minutes?
Yeah, it's good to see that Aaron Wiggins is going to be out there. He'll be playing a ton. They were drawing plays up for him in the last game, so his minutes are really secure as really one of the main wings with him and Lou Dort with Shea. So I think they're going to lock down most of the playing time. But, yeah, they just don't have any forwards. So they do have Isaiah Roby. I think they would probably start Favors and then maybe bench him tomorrow. We'll see. And, I mean, I think – they really like Kenrich Williams off the bench, so I think they don't want to change that, but they may have to just because out of necessity here. But I would think Roby has a good chance to start here against a bigger front court and Chimezie Metu, which we can get to. There may be changes coming there, but I think Roby gets in the rotation to really patch up most of the issues with Poku and Bazley and JRE all out. Just makes a lot of sense. So that'll be something. Obviously, Muscala's minutes to be elevated a little bit. Favors minutes maybe closer to 20 than usual. And Theo Maledon should be pretty secure in the second unit. Not really a play, but maybe 20 minutes. Dagnall said, who's also out for COVID, I said that they kind of game plan Maledon in once they found out that Trey Mann was out, and they basically just put him in the Trey Mann role. So I would assume that to happen again too.
Yeah, they're going to be hard pressed to figure out the 4 minutes. I think 1 through 3 with Shea, Wiggins, and Dort are pretty set with Maledon as a backup to some of those spots. And then Kenrich Williams is going to have to play a lot of minutes at the 4. Backup 3, primary 4. Those are some areas of opportunity for Oklahoma City tonight. Always tough with Oklahoma City because the range of outcomes on guys is really, really wide. We've seen guys start and play like 8 minutes. We've seen guys go from out of the rotation to playing 30 minutes. So there's going to be opportunities there. Roby probably the most interesting, but we'll probably have to wait on starters announcements to have a better understanding of that.
Brody's do you hear Brody having a bad dream right now? I woke him up. He doesn't like the Thunder being shorthanded.
Clearly. like father, like son.
Sorry.
The Magic, Mo Wagner is back. I don't think we really need to cover too much about the Magic. They're still super shorthanded, but they have Wendell Carter Jr., no Cole Anthony still. So you're going to get kind of what we saw last game where they struggled to score against Miami. Mo Wagner back does give them a little bit of added depth in the front court, but they actually were kind of okay in the front court between Wendell Carter Jr. and Robin Lopez. So I don't think it changes too much there. On the Heat side of the equation, who they played last game, you've got Udonis Haslem out. PJ Tucker is questionable. Still, Bam is still out for weeks. Kyle Lowry's still in health and safety protocol. So it's the Jimmy Butler and Tyler Hero show if all goes well here. What do you expect changes for, if any, changes for Miami tonight? And do you think we see Tucker?
Yeah, so Tucker's interesting. There were some quotes from Spoelstra talking about, at the time, needing Udonis Haslem to play some minutes next to Omer at 7. So if you're doing that, that pretty much says to me that they weren't expecting Tucker to play. So had a nerve issue, was in quite a bit of pain right after he got hurt and starting to feel better. So I think it's more of a doubtful tag to me. We saw Tyler Hero get a bunch of questionable tags. So I think he fits in that bucket. So that's pretty good. And they don't necessarily need him without Udonis Haslem. We saw they didn't play Casey Okpala in the last game. They basically slid Caleb Martin into some pretty big minutes. So,
Jimmy can play the 4 essentially for them.
Mm-hmm.
Like they can play, they can play up a bit. But you look at the front court depth: no Bam, no Dwayne Dedmon, no Udonis Haslem, no Markieff Morris, possibly no PJ Tucker. I mean, in terms of true 4s or 5s, it's your 7 and no one else, right? Mm-hmm. But they're willing to play these lineups where Butler can essentially act as a 4 with his rebounding skill set and his ability to like handle people on the post. And then they can get into the second units with Caleb Martin kind of there. So it'll be interesting to see how they handle this if Tucker is out. But you would think your 7 is slated to play a ton, and he's played very well when he's gotten the opportunity so far.
Yeah, really good matchup for him too. So definitely a guy that I'll be into. And yeah, they've used Casey Okpala as a 5-man before, so I think that will be the plan kind of going into it if Tucker can go.
The Knicks are a team that are getting players back from health and safety protocols. We know that they had Emmanuel Quickley back and available for Christmas Day's game, but he was not up to par with conditioning, so they held him out. They also are getting back Miles McBride. I don't expect Miles McBride to be in the rotation for multiple reasons. I don't think he's in the rotation normally now anyway, but also I just think at this point, like, it's pretty clear that the Knicks, the day guys are announced back, they're going to be pretty cautious in terms of bringing these guys back at all. They sat RJ Barrett the first game. They sat Emmanuel Quickley the first game. They kept Obi Toppin's minutes down the first game. They sat Grimes the first game. So I think they'll be very conservative on anyone they bring back. The big question with Emmanuel Quickley coming back into the rotation is what does that do to Alec Burks and Kemba Walker? We saw on Christmas, we thought Kemba had a chance to play upper 30s minutes once again, but we also thought Alec Burks would get into the upper 20s, low 30s. Brooks was cut way down to 18, in large part because Quentin Grimes was so good shooting the ball from the corner. And, with Quickley back in the mix as well, I think it hurts the ceiling of all of these guys because they can all kind of, go a little hot handy. But do you think Kemba Walker has earned the right to continue to play into the 30s with his recent play?
I think so. Thibodeau, whenever I listen to Tom Thibodeau, I always look at how he treats players with other players. And he talked a lot about chemistry with Fournier and Randall. These are things he wasn't doing kind of like early Kemba coming back. So I think he's really cemented himself as a starter. But, if he doesn't play well, minutes could definitely be cut down. Going to be tough to get to upper 30s if he can kind of keep it going now that he has a kind of reliable backup. He said he does like Alec Burks off the bench. So, again, that kind of hammers home the point that Kemba should be the main man. And they want to keep Quickley's minutes down in the return, as you hinted to. So I think they stick with the same starting lineup there. But yeah, it would be, affecting the Grimes would be kind of, a guy who could get cut down a little bit if Quickley comes in there. I think Burks' minutes are still pretty secure on like the, close to 20. He ran just real bad, as you mentioned, in the last game. So I expect him to be a little bit closer to the mid-20s.
So you think Grimes gets cut down? Do you think the ceiling on like Fournier and Barrett and these guys all has to get topped as well, I assume. But do you think we go back to seeing Fournier playing like 25-26 or like very hot handy? Like, what do you think? Yeah.
If Fournier is struggling, they'll kind of pull him. But Tibbs really wants him to play well. He thinks he's like one of their better defenders and this and that. So he still has a ceiling. But as he always does, that bench unit's like starting to come together now. So like we saw earlier in the season, like Derrick Rose was really the fuel to that bench unit cutting into the starter. So I would say relative to earlier in the year, it wouldn't be quite as bad. But so just again, like I think he's pretty safe, but just not quite like bulletproof.
Okay. Let's talk about the Warriors, who are getting Andrew Wiggins back, potentially Andre Iguodala back as well. They're in a matchup tonight against the Nuggets where, like, the Nuggets play pretty slow. Jokic is like the whole team. Jokic can be the whole team and still be successful against the Warriors. He's one of the few guys who can probably do that. But this game does carry some blowout risk. Are there any conditioning concerns around Andrew Wiggins' return? The Warriors have been playing really well in the absence of both Wiggins and Poole, and they have plenty of depth. We've seen Otto Porter Jr. really step up of late. Gary Payton II also step up. Do you think there's any concern in terms of Wiggins returning right back to his normal, like, low to mid-30s role?
Well, it's pretty good because he went through a full practice and got an additional workout after that. So they're clearly trying to prep him for a full workload. So I think he could kind of get up there. And Iguodala also went through full practice, so that probable tag looking like really, really good too. So, that's obviously huge. The Otto Porter minutes are going to come way down. We got a prop in there I really liked earlier today.
Yeah. People are asking some questions about stuff with labs. I don't know that we've pushed everything yet. I also know that when we add a bunch of new players that have been signed to 10-day contracts, sometimes it gives our system problems. And it's not something that I can troubleshoot while on the show, but we will address it certainly, and it will be up, and everybody will be showing a projection well before lock. Let's get to some of the Wolves options. We've got Pat Beverly, who we think is probable, essentially. Q tags for Torian Prince, Anthony Edwards, Nasri. These are also all returned from health and safety protocols where these guys have cleared, but now we don't know from a conditioning standpoint if they're actually going to play, which is like my most frustrating result of these situations now has been the hokey pokey on doing all these things. And yeah, what do you think? Like, is there any hint? I don't know how we guess at guys' conditioning levels, but is there any hint from the coaching staff on whether these players will be available?
Big hint from Finch on Beverly. He basically said that he's for sure playing. So Beverly's going to be a hardcore in. Don't know his level of conditioning. Obviously not a younger player anymore. Should be good. Nasri's interesting because he's kind of like went on last. So he's kind of like Beal, right? Where he kind of went on really not the same era,
just like a day or two. Yeah.
Yeah. So he should be pretty good, which is interesting because last night, man, Nate Knight and Greg Monroe like closed together as the 4-5s for I think like 11 minutes in the fourth quarter. It was crazy. But
Greg Monroe still a triple double threat at
dude. It's Finch said that what was it? Throwing the ball into Monroe, quote, calm down the offense. Like, oh my god. In 2021, that's just like wild. He was like glowing about Greg Monroe, and 30 minutes before, like, he didn't really know if he could play, and he was like, "Hey, how many minutes can you play?" And he said he didn't know, so craziness. Yeah. But obviously we'll have to kind of feel that one out. That's not an early game, if I remember. Yeah, it's 8:00, so we should have a pretty good idea on like who's available. I feel like we don't know who starts.
Yeah.
But Nate Knight,
embarrassing loss from the Celtics last night in that one.
Yeah, Udoka was pissed, man. He kind of threw Time Lord under the bus a little bit.
You can look at that box score and guess that's what happened.
Yeah.
He was 40 for everybody else and 22 for Old Time Lord.
Yeah, it was a quick tangent. He was saying like, oh yeah, we coached him up because like all these new 10 days, these NBA players, they're not like us where they like know the tendencies and stuff of players like you and everything. They like coached up Time Lord on like who to try to stop on jumpers, and he wasn't doing that. Like he went after him. But anyways, yeah. So we'll have to see. I think Nasri's probably the most likely after Beverly, and then we'll see. It's a home game, so I don't know. I'll have this for the show later, but we'll figure out like when guys quarantined and have all that spelled out a little bit better.
Yeah. All right, let's get to some actual injuries after 25 minutes of health and safety protocols. On the questionable side, we've got Josh Hart for New Orleans. They're also without Brandon Ingram. He's listed as doubtful. Jonas Valanciunas should come back into the mix, though. He's listed as probable, so they're kind of trading out one big usage guy for another. Josh Hart's absence would be a big deal. Simply losing a lot of wing minutes with Brandon Ingram. They're already without Nickeil Alexander-Walker as well. So trying to fill kind of all these, primary usage wing type players will be an issue for New Orleans if they're without Josh Hart. We've seen Josh Hart, he plays really hard, and it seems like he's relied on really heavily, and then he gets dinged up. And when he gets dinged up, it's like this questionable tag for like a week is what it seems like. So what are your thoughts on Josh Hart's availability tonight?
So new injury, he had the quad tendinosis in one knee, and then the other knee got hurt. So now he's got an ankle. No mention of it post game from Hart or Willie Green. So what can we say? We'll see, but it does sound minor. But given the nature of the team and everything, we'll see. But no Brandon Ingram. We saw it was really Garrett Temple who soaked up most of those minutes. We saw that kind of earlier in the year too, so he would be a guy benefiting. They'll bring Trey Murphy into the situation a little bit more. Obviously, Billy Hernan-Gomez's minutes and Jackson Hayes' minutes are going to kind of go away. But yeah, that small ball lineup stuff was going to be kind of gone. And man, they are going to feed JV a ton in this game too.
Yeah, Hernan-Gomez will go back to the reserve role. Jonas Valanciunas will take a ton of usage in the starting lineup and probably be a pretty good play. All right, Aaron Gordon, hamstring. He's been, questionable, doubtful. Like it seems like the last three games or so. Played through one of them and then sat the last two, I believe it is. Up against the Warriors tonight, kind of a big deal for Denver because they really need his switchability in defense and different things against the Warriors. So what do you think the likelihood of seeing Aaron Gordon back tonight is?
Yeah, this is his bad hamstring, the one he messed up in the bubble in January of earlier this year. So we'll see. It sounded like Malone isn't counting on him based on his comments. Talked about Austin Rivers and being so athletic and kind of helping. They put Austin Rivers in the first unit in the last game. Malone had said that was because, finding the quote, he was, quote, a backbone of the playoff run they had. So if he doesn't play, I would expect Austin Rivers to be out there. But yeah, I don't really know. He'll certainly be a game time late start. So going to be real tough to get a read. Like he's like for sure going to be game time if he's going to go. So we won't have that information.
All right, last spot that I want to talk about is Houston, where they revealed an injury report that had a ton of guys on it. Kevin Porter Jr. and Jalen Green were not, though. And neither was Eric Gordon. So it seems like those three primary scoring guards are going to be back in the mix, but they are without just a slew of options. They got hit with the health and safety protocols mix the last few days here. So what does it look like for Houston tonight?
Yeah, rough. They are missing a lot of their front court depth, namely KJ Martin, Garrison Matthews, who played some three for them, and then obviously Jayshawn Tate, really their cornerstone of their front court right now, beside Christian Wood. So yeah, they're going to probably there is a ramp up plan on Jalen Green and Kevin Porter Jr. So I would expect KPJ to probably be mid-20s, Jalen Green to probably be upper 20s to 30. Eric Gordon will have a little bit of a cap, even though his minutes were light yesterday. I'm surprised Gordon's playing. I thought that they would want to keep him out. So keep an eye on that. They may move him back to the bench, but probably not. So, the other, like, Trevlin Queen, Dejoun Nix, like, all those minutes are going to kind of go away. They'll play a little bit smaller. We saw kind of Nwaba was the de facto 4, so they could kind of trim down that way. Tice's minutes can kind of go away a little bit. This is heavily garbage time aided. He was, I think, the 10th man in the rotation. Like, they put Dejoun Nix, Trevlin Queen, and Garuba all in ahead of Tice. I wouldn't be, if your box score reading, you're like, oh, Tice is playing 22 minutes, pretty much just throw that out.
Yeah. All right. Anything else you wanted to cover while we roll through all of these health and safety protocols? It seems like it's one of these days that, like, so much stuff is still up in the air that it feels like very difficult to help people right now with content and with projections and analysis. It feels like a day that we're going to be scrambling quite a bit. But anything else that we missed that you wanted to cover?
No, let's get out of here.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, thanks for those of you tuning in. Hopefully we provided a little bit of clarity on what things might look like given the array of different questionable tags and if-then situations tonight. If you are a subscriber at Established Run, behind the paywall at 5 o'clock Eastern tonight, myself and Mike Gallagher will once again be breaking down the slate, hopefully with more injury information at our disposal that we can actually give a little bit clearer recommendations. If not, we'll be reacting live on air as the news breaks in as normal. If you are not a subscriber, please make sure to subscribe to this YouTube page so you can get notifications. Continue to help us grow this brand and this YouTube content so we can continue to deliver quality free content to you all each and every Monday through Friday at 2 o'clock Eastern here on the Established Run NBA Injury Report Analysis Show. Best of luck in all the games. Enjoy the NBA tonight, and we will see you guys tomorrow.